Hello, friends. So today I'll be talking about this procedure series where I will take you through bronchoscopic percutaneous tracheostomy. So I wish to acknowledge my colleague, Dr. Raghavendra Kotal, who has recorded this video and has edited the video. So my gratitude for him. So we'll just take into the brief background of tracheostomy and then I'll take you through the video. So the question that comes to everyone's mind is whether early is better or late is better. So there are multiple studies that have been done to ascertain whether early tracheostomy is beneficial as compared to late. When we say early, it is less than 10 days and late is more than 10 days. So multiple studies have been done and none of the studies have been conclusive enough to say early is better over the late. And this could not be a part of the guidelines. So none of the guidelines could pinpoint and say whether early is better or late is better. So there has been no benefit with regards to ICU length of stay. There's no benefit with regards to mortality or ventilator associated pneumonia, and there's no benefit with regards to any tracheal complications. But the common sense prevails that in situations where one would expect that there is going to be a prolonged need for airway protection, typically that would happen in a traumatic brain injury or a massive stroke, one would imagine doing an early tracheostomy would help you to bring him out of the ventilator and send him to a rehabilitation process, which appears a lot more prudent and pragmatic. So one should possibly apply those thought processes to look into the trajectory of the clinical progress and then decide whether one would contemplate on doing early. But when you look at the evidence, there's no conclusive evidence. Then the second question that should come in one's mind is whether percutaneous is any superior to surgical. So studies have shown that doing surgical tracheostomy in the theater is almost become obsolete from ICU point of view because moving a sick ICU patient on a ventilator to the OT setting and incurring a lot of OT costs and taking him to theater for a tracheostomy is almost not being done in most of the units, most of the good units. So if at all one could argue whether surgical tracheostomy at the bedside versus percutaneous tracheostomy because the studies have shown moving the patient to the theater for the procedure he carries along with it the morbidity, and the morbidity is put at 13 to 33%, moving the ICU sick patients to OT for undergoing tracheostomy. And if you look into the studies, there are multiple studies. This was an earlier meta-analysis of 17 randomized controlled trials of 1,212 patients, which looked at the risk of wound infection. And they found that the wound infection was significantly less in patients who underwent percutaneous as opposed to surgical. And some of the reasons cited is there is minimal invasive sort of a dissection that happens with percutaneous because it is more of a dilation technique, which you will see it in the video. And so the wound infection was found to be less. And this was the recent meta-analysis in 2014, which came with the combined authors from Germany and Italy, 14 RCTs, 973 patients, where they showed the risk of inflammation and infection was significantly less in percutaneous tracheostomy. Although the study sort of suggested that the technical difficulty appeared to be little higher in percutaneous tracheostomy too. So now we'll jump with this in the background, we'll jump into the procedural aspect. So the first step while doing tracheostomy is to obviously identify the tracheal ring. So it is desirable that second or third tracheal ring is recognized and tracheostomy tube is inserted into the second or third tracheal ring. And after the skin incision is made, the dilatation is made with using dilators to create a portal of entry for the dilators and the tracheostomy. So the bronchoscopy tube is put in and it is left at the end of the ET tube to visualize the introducer needle and the guide wire that one would put in for the tracheostomy. And you will see it in the video, all these steps. So once the bronchoscope is put in, once the skin dissection is done to create a portal, then a needle with cannula is inserted into the second or third tracheal ring. So this is the beauty of bronchoscopy. So when you have a bronchoscopic visualization, see, as you see here, you see the entry port of the needle. So the needle gets into the trachea. So the beauty of having to do it with bronchoscopy is you will prevent the needle puncturing the posterior wall, which can be quite risky and it can cause emphysema. So care has to be taken so that there is no perforation or puncture of the posterior tracheal wall. And with bronchoscopy, you would, since you are doing it under visualization, you would avoid that happening. And once the needle is put in, the cannula above that needle is passed into the trachea, and you look for the air coming out from the cannula, ensuring that it is in place, and that you would see it even with bronchoscopy. So in bronchoscopy, as you see here, this cannula is in place and it is sitting nicely in the lumen. So once you confirm this, then you would pass the guide wire. So the guide wire is passed into the cannula. And as you see bronchoscopically, you will see there is a cannula and you will see this nice dark guide wire passing through the cannula into the lumen of the tracheostomy tube. And once the guide wire is passed, over the guide wire, there is a mini dilator, small dilator, which you'll see in the video, is passed. And this mini dilator is meant to be lubricated with xylocaine and then or a jelly. And then it is introduced into this ring over the guide wire. And once the mini dilator is passed, there is a progressive dilator of this. I'm sure most of the listeners would have seen percutaneous. So there is a progressive dilator which sort of tapers down at the edge and then it broadens up. So with this, you open up the you open up the pathway for the tracheostomy to be inserted under bronchoscopic visualization. So as you see in bronchoscope, you would be really seeing this progressive dilator sitting nicely in the lumen, and you would pass this progressive dilator until this black line, which ensures there is adequate dilatation and the pathway created for the tracheostomy tube to be put in. And then you would pass the tracheostomy tube, which is loaded over a loader, and then you would pass the whole tube through the guide wire and the dilating catheter that is there on the guide wire. So these are the steps that I have taken you through. So now I'll play the video so you can go through how we have done this bronchoscopic percutaneous tracheostomy in our unit, and this has been recorded. So then quickly we'll talk about complications of what are the complications of percutaneous tracheostomy. So there are immediate complications, early and late complications. So the immediate complications can be pneumothorax when you puncture the posterior tracheal wall or the lung or the pleura. So or then there can be mediastinal emphysema also. So there is a pneumomediastinum and pneumothorax can be the dreaded complication. Then whilst you're doing the procedure, you may lose the airway. The ET tube may come out and that can be disastrous, especially when you have a patient with difficult airway because the neck would be extended when you're doing a tracheostomy. So loss of airway is another complication. And as I said, posterior wall injury is a complication which should be kept in mind. And bronchoscopic procedure of tracheostomy would really prevent this posterior wall injury because you're really visualizing the passage of the dilator and the tracheostomy tube. And injury to the esophagus also is a complication. Hemorrhage at the site of inserting the tracheostomy or inflammation at the site of stoma, which is a little later complication. And sometimes if you're putting too much of pressure, which is very close to the tracheal, obviously you'll be passing it between the tracheal rings. So there is a potential risk of tracheal ring fracture also that can happen. So these are some of the immediate and early complications of tracheostomy. So I'll just take you through the procedure, video procedure. So this is the tracheostomy kit that you would have. So as you see, you have a scapula. So to make an incision, then you have a needle with a cannula here with a syringe. And then this is the white one is a mini dilator. You have a guide wire. And then you have this progressive dilator. This is the loader over which the tracheostomy tube is loaded. And then you have these inner tubes. So I'll just play this video. So go through it, and these are the steps that one should undertake whilst doing. So position of the patient is most important. So obviously you need to put a pillow or put a roll of towel to extend the neck so that the tracheal ring stand out and your dissection becomes easy and passing the tracheostomy and the whole procedure becomes easier. So I'll just play this video. Just have a look. So there is this local infiltration that we're doing. So as you see this is the you would see here so whilst doing local infiltration, we'll pass it into the trachea, we'll infiltrate a bit into the trachea, and you could see it in the bronchoscopy. So then we would make a skin incision. Right, so the ring has been identified and the skin incision is being done, as you see. Now you see the dilator as I showed you in the steps. So this is the uh, dilators that are used to dilate the skin to create a portal for entry of the uh, mini dilator, the guide wire, and the progressive dilator. So once adequate dilatation is done, so it is important to feel the tracheal ring and make sure that ring is nicely felt. So that's what you would see is pass the little finger to see whether the tracheal ring is nicely felt. So now you have taken a syringe with a saline along with a needle with a cannula. So this is the needle with a cannula. So there is a cannula above that needle. So it is a 16 gauge one. So you would feel the tracheal ring and then pass this needle with the cannula. So you see this is a very, very important step, and this is done under visualization with bronchoscopy so that you don't puncture the posterior tracheal wall. So this is very important. See, as you see, there is a nice air being withdrawn, and then you would confirm it on a bronchoscopy. See, you see a nice needle here sitting in the lumen. And once you know the needle is sitting in the lumen, then the cannula, see, you see the cannula being pushed into the lumen of the trachea. And then see, you see that transparent cannula sitting there and the needle is removed. So in bronchoscope, you are absolutely ensuring it is nicely sitting in the lumen and it is not touching the posterior tracheal wall. So this is a very important step. And bronchoscopy makes this very easy for you to determine that you are nicely sitting in the lumen and not creating the false track. So you would see the air bubbling. So the video, I'm not sure if you can make out. So you see here, there's a nice cannula sitting inside, and in that cannula, guide wire is being passed. And even you would want to see that guide wire is not puncturing the posterior pharyngeal wall, and it is nicely sitting in the lumen of the trachea. So now you will see in the bronchoscope the guide wire nicely sitting. And then the cannula is being removed. See, you can see that's a nice guide wire which is sitting inside the lumen of the trachea. And now you have this mini dilator. So as you see, the operator has put the mini dilator and passing over the guide wire. And you can see that mini dilator going in the lumen. So you see the mini dilator and it is, it is in the lumen, it is not punctured the posterior tracheal wall. Once the mini dilator is removed, the big dilator is passed in. This is a progressive dilator and you need to pass it until the black line, and throughout the procedure it is important that the trachea is stabilized with the left hand. See, you see the progressive dilator nicely going inside the lumen. There is a little obscuring here, but I think the bronchoscope may have a little bit more, but you can see that nicely. See that progressive dilator going into the lumen of the trachea. So once that is done, you can see the loader and the tracheostomy tube. So tracheostomy tube is put into the loader and the guide wire is pulled in until this white dilating catheter is come out. And now see, as you see, the left hand is being used to stabilize the trachea and the tracheostomy tube is passed inside the lumen of the trachea. So he's removed the whole thing. As you see, the tracheostomy is successfully inserted. And most importantly, after doing percutaneous tracheostomy, it is important that you put in the inner tube cannula because inner tube cannula would prevent the blockage of the tracheostomy tube. So as you see, after we put the tracheostomy, it is important that we check the air entry equally because the risk, one of the complication is pneumothorax or mediastinal emphysema or surgical emphysema or pneumomediastinum. So you ensure with auscultation that there is a good air entry After that, it is important, as you see, the inner tube is being put in. So it's important we put the inner tube, because even when there is any blood clot or something which blocks the trachea, inner tube can be pulled out. Then the outer tube will be protecting the airway. So that's the procedure, and I'll just take you through quickly certain complications, the long-term complications that can happen through the video. As you see, the inflation of the cuff is very important, because you should not overinflate, because overinflation of the cuff would lead to obstruction or impinging on the esophagus, and it can lead to necrosis of the tracheal wall. So it is very important that the tracheal pressure is monitored, with the cuff inflation pressure has to be monitored. And another important risk of tracheostomy is the micro aspirations that can happen if the cuff is not fully inflated. As you see, there can be, because the cough reflex will be compromised and the swallowing is compromised, and when patient is swallowing anything, so there is a small risk of aspiration. And if the cuff is not fully inflated, and this can, micro aspiration can happen inside the lungs. So that is a bit about long-term complications. There can be tracheal stenosis and the necrosis of the wall. So the cuff pressure is something that is important. So the low pressure or cuff not fully inflated also can lead to aspiration, and overinflation can lead to posterior tracheal wall necrosis, or it can lead to tracheoesophageal fistula, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much. So I went with this beautiful quote. So gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. So thank you all. So I'll be doing some more of these procedural videos, which would be useful for a young trainee to go through the steps. So thank you all. So you can visit my website, www.drpradeeprangappa.com, to re-hear this or to re-look into this video.